It's Play in the Shed day, and today I'm going to do a bit of welding and cutting and grinding because I want to build a Tensegrity coffee table. And this is the shape I'm going to use. I'm going to cut out a piece of scrap ply just to use as a guide. I'm going to use 20mm tubing for all of the frame. This stuff's only 2mm thick, and my drawing has got the angles, so I'm just transposing the angles from the drawing onto the pieces of steel. I'll cut them all out and then weld them all together. Outside of the frame's all cut out and it looks like it's going to fit together okay. But before I start welding it together, there's a few holes I need to drill. As you're probably aware, Tensegrity uses cables to hold the top and the base apart. And those cables are going to go through a hole, but I'm going to put a bit of round bar inside so the cable has got a round surface to go around. Because as the cable tensions, I want it to be able to go around a nice curve. The cable will come up through that gap in an internal frame, around that bit of round bar and up out of that hole. To make sure I get the frame even, I'm just going to use this bit of ply as a guide. It doesn't have to be perfect, but somewhere near perfect would be really good. Now it's all tacked together, it'll stay in that shape. So now it's weld all the joints. I was really hopeful that I'd get the welds good enough so I didn't have to grind them. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So, a little bit of grinding with the flap disc to make all those ugly welds disappear. The cables will hang from the top frame, so before I weld the top frame together, I'm just going to tap a thread in the side because there'll be an M5 bolt that'll go through the side that will hold a loop for the cable. You'll see later on how this works. So it's time for more welding action. And I'm so confident I'm not using my template. This proved to be a mistake. I ended up having to faff around because I didn't get the joints exactly right. Yeah, well. This is the bottom frame. As you can see, I've welded in a whole lot of pieces in the middle, and now I'm just welding in some tube that will be the legs. The cables and adjusters will go in those pieces that are in the centre, and you'll see that in a minute. You can see I've got a picture from the internet that I'm using sort of as a rough guide as to how I will join the two pieces together. And so these are the arms that reach from the top and from the bottom. And so again, I'm just using the drawing to get the angles sort of right. Okay, I've got the pieces cut out for the arms. So let's just double check with the drawing to make sure that everything looks like it's going to fit okay. Yep, I think that'll be alright. We'll be able to go ahead and weld all those up. It's always handy to have, well, an extra hand to hold things in place just as you get the weld started. I've been showing the welding in fast motion, but in reality it's a fairly slow process. But it's quiet and it's clean, no spatter with the TIG welder. Very satisfying. Top and bottom frame is complete, and this is basically how it hangs together. It sort of floats in mid-air just by the cables. I've opened up the channels underneath so that the adjusters can go in. So there's just a piece of steel with a thread in one end, and the loop for the cable will go in the other end. So I've just got an example loop there. You can see how that it just gets captured by the bolt, and it slides inside the frame, and the other bolt screws into it. And so as that bolt that I've got in my right hand gets tightened up, it pulls the cable tight. Time to make up the cables. Now I've just got this 1mm cable, and I'm going to use some little brass tubes to make a loop on each end of the cable. Now this cable reckons that it'll hold at least 15 kilos with a breaking strain of 85. Now I'm not sure how that works, but I'm sure that my fixings will fail before the cable fails. Anyway, just loop the cable around in the little brass tube, and I'll swage that brass tube onto the cable just with a hammer and chisel. Well, there we go. That's pretty easy. One loop done. And I'm hoping these will hold. Here's a close-up. I've got the 3 cables made up and I've got them threaded inside the tubes. Now I just need to attach them to the adjuster and put the adjuster inside the tube as well. The reason for all this faffing around making these adjusters down in underneath the frame is because there's no way you can get everything together in complete tension. So once everything's put together, then you tighten up these 3 bolts and it puts everything in tension. And you'll see that in a minute when we assemble the whole thing. Now that I've got the cables attached to the bottom, I can attach the other end of the cable up to the top. And as you can see, I'm just screwing in a bolt. I've got a loop poked up into a hole, and that bolt will go through the loop and hold the loop. The next step is to work out the length of the middle cable that goes in between those 2 arms. So I'm just holding up the top frame and getting a bit of a measurement. Hopefully I'll get it close. With the cable attached to both arms, I can now do the final adjustment. The table's very unstable at the moment, but I'm just getting a bit of a measure. So then I'll start screwing up those bolts, and that'll start tightening down the cables and put everything in tension. It's all very wobbly and unstable at the moment. It doesn't look like it's going to work. Okay, everything's all tightened up and even. And so now we've got quite a stable table with the top just hovering over. And even if you put a heavy weight on it, it holds it no problem at all. So I think we're on a winner. I'm confident enough this is going to work. So, time to give it a bit of a paint. And then after painting, we'll need to put a top on it. And I'm going to put a clear Perspex top on the thing to finish it off. And then some rubber feet on the bottom. I've got some 10mm thick clear Perspex for the lid. I reckon that'll go well. And fortunately, the sheet just fits. So now it's onto the bandsaw to cut it out. The bandsaw doesn't cut a perfect finish, so it's just a matter of finishing it off on the sander. I've still got the protective plastic on the front and back, so there's no possibility of scratching it while I do this. Okay, the job's nearly done. Just a matter of peeling off the plastic and screwing it on. As you can see, I've already drilled the holes and countersunk them for some little countersunk screws. I've got some pieces of self-adhesive felt in between the tabletop and the steel. I think this looks a little bit better with a small air gap. The Perspex has a nasty habit of sticking everything to it with static electricity, but a bit of air fixes that. The job's all done. Let's have a little close-up look. Nothing to do but sit back, relax, have a cup of tea, and use my lovely Tensegrity coffee table and bask in the smugness of knowing that I've built that table myself.